To learn to play beyond all reason, you need to take it one small step at a time, because this grand-scale sci-fi themed base-building RTS has several factions, a streaming economy system, 3 technology levels, and hundreds of different buildings and units, all with their specific uses. I am going to create a new game of Skirmish vs AI, as I would advise you to do yourself in order to practice what you see and learn in this first tutorial. The Barbarian AI is as close to real players as you can get, and you shouldn't practice against any weaker AI, as it will give you a false feeling for the game. The download link for Beyond All Reason is in the description, along with a link to my tutorials playlist. Once you're loaded into the map, the match doesn't immediately start, so you have time to choose your faction and a place to which your main unit, the commander, will be teleported to once the match begins. Armada and Cortex are the already completed factions, while the Legion is still being worked on at the time of making this tutorial. I would advise going with Armada until you learn the basics. The commander is important in many ways and can do many things, which I will explain in a separate video, but for now keep in mind that he is the best starting builder you have and the most powerful damage dealing unit, while losing him means losing the match. In 1v1 you lose immediately after its destruction, but in a team game only once all commanders in your team are destroyed. You now pick the teleport spot for the commander by left-clicking on the green part of the map and a position which has a cluster of closely packed metal deposits, 3 or 4 of them. Those are identified by the small white circles with a number inside. The number part I will explain later, but for now remember that metal is one of the 2 main resources in Bar, and that it is the harder one to obtain. Do note that when playing with AI, other commanders will be placed after you have chosen a spot, while in multiplayer, all players are simultaneously choosing their places, so you have to be quick if you want to pick your favorite position. But multiplayer is a very long story of its own, and I will cover it in other tutorials. As time itself is very precious in Bar, being able to plan your building placement before the match even starts is incredibly useful. And you do this while holding the shift key and left clicking on the buildings you want to build in the menu and left clicking on the ground to place them. If you make a mistake, simply left click a new building onto that one and it will be removed from the queue. Do note that the green circle around your commander unit is its build range, so you want to fit all your first buildings inside that range and prevent losing time to walking around. To see how much each building will cost you to build it, we are going to go into the options to toggle on a few settings. Using the advanced type of settings display and in the interface section, we need to enable the always show prices option. This shows you the metal costs of each building in white and energy cost of it in yellow. You also want to enable unit groups, idle builders, factory dock, and energy converter usage options, whose use I will showcase to you soon. In the second page of this menu, you want to enable the building grid option, and lastly, in the accessibility tab menu, you want to enable the simple theme colors icon, and as you gain experience with the game, you can turn this off or use the different shades option for each player. But I will talk more about that in the multiplayer tutorials. Because Bar doesn't have a uniform start on each map, nor the same conditions for energy production and metal extraction, there isn't a single opening build to follow. While this makes it even harder to learn the game, it also makes each match less predictable and more fun. Since you start each match with 1000 metal and 1000 energy, you will quickly run out of these 2 main resources if you do not have extraction and production buildings for them. This is why in a normal beginner-friendly start, you need to have queued up 2 metal extractors for your commander to construct, followed by several energy production buildings and then more metal extractors. Here I am adding 3 wind turbines to the build queue, as there is wind on this map. Alternatively, if there is distance involved in building these metal extractors, you can build 3 of them at start. But as they each cost 500 energy and your commander produces only 25 energy per second on its own, you're in danger of stalling your future building and production due to running out of energy, which is a large part of the build cost for future wind turbines. However, on a map with no wind, where you have to spend metal for solar collectors anyway, a start with 3 metal extractors, even if they are close to each other and will drain your entire energy reserve, is not a problem. Because not only do you need all that extra metal production since you are using it to construct solar collectors, you also don't need to save energy, as those solar collectors don't need it for their building. Each time you start, you have to first check what is the strength of the wind on the map you're playing by looking at the number on this info card. The top number shows the minimum wind speed, which doesn't have to always be a 0, and the bottom one shows the maximum wind speed. If you're playing on a map with no wind at all, as shown by this icon, wind turbines are disabled and you have to construct solar collectors. Those produce energy at a constant rate, while the energy wind turbines produce varies with the wind speed. A general rule is that the lower the maximum wind speed is, the more likely you have to add 1 or more solar collectors to your starting build. Now about those numbers inside the metal spots. Those show the income generated by metal extractors built on them. Most maps have metal spots with higher numbers in their middle, giving you an incentive to build out, take over those rich metal spots and defend them, giving you a place to form your outer territory limits and defensive outposts. This is all precisely why you can't create a single build order in Beyond All Reason, as you have to adapt not just to the starting wind conditions on each map, but also to the speed of the wind once the match starts. Don't be afraid to change your building plans and react to a huge drop in wind speed by building a solar collector you didn't plan on. You can easily build one ahead of the rest of the queue by holding the spacebar key as you left click to place it. This forces the commander to build it before he continues with the rest of the originally queued up buildings. If you have your own tips for new players or want to share your build order, please do so in the comments below, and feel free to suggest which gameplay topic I should cover in future tutorials. Now that you have learned how to set up the optimal starting economy of metal and energy income, you have probably noticed that in Bar, these resources aren't spent in batches but slowly drained from stockpiles as you use them. This is called a streaming economy. It is also the reason why your metal and energy bars on the top of the screen have 5 numbers instead of the 1 or 2 like in most RTS games. The bottom green number is your resource income. The top number is in bright red, as that is the amount of resources you're currently spending from both your active production and stockpile, while the other red number shows how much you're spending only from your active production. So when the brighter red number is higher than the other one, that means you're draining your stockpiles. The amount you have stockpiled is shown at the middle, while the maximum amount of resources you can stockpile is shown at the right. The 2 red boxes on the resource bars we will skip for now and talk about in future tutorials, while I need to make a small digression to explain the white box in the energy bar. That one represents the point after which energy is given over to energy converter buildings, which turn energy into metal. This is mostly part of the late economy, but can be useful at the start if you have extra energy and lack the ability to conquer more metal spots. In those conditions, you construct energy converters which have a constant rate of 70 energy for 1 metal at the first technology tier. To better see and use this gameplay mechanic is the reason we enabled the option in the interface menu called Energy Converter Usage. It shows up here once you have constructed your first energy converter, and you can see how well they are working. When you are overflowing with energy, which means that you are producing more than you are spending, you can move the white box on the energy bar to the right to take full advantage of excess energy. But if something happens and your energy production goes down, you can move that white box to the left to limit how much energy do energy converters take and prevent them from paralyzing the rest of your buildings or constructors which are also using energy. There is also a way of producing energy from geothermal sources, harvesting the environment like trees, and from tidal waves. But I think it will be too much for this beginner's tutorial, so let's leave those for a future one. Going back to our stable metal and energy production, it is time now to put it to use. Your next building should be a bot or a vehicle lab. And for beginners, a bot lab is probably the simpler choice as it offers fewer, very specialized units and the bonus lasers bot, which I will need to make a whole video on. What is important to know is that you can click on the bot lab and its build menu to start queuing up units even before it is built. Again, there is no build order for the win and depends on your position, role in the match and faction. My advice would be clicking on the constructor bot once, then holding the shift key and left clicking on the tick, which is a fast scout bot, to order 5 at once. After that, going back to the construction bot for 3 more of them, and then clicking twice on the pawn infantry bot while holding the shift key to order 10 of them. The constructor comes with extra construction options that your commander doesn't have. The scout has a tiny gun but a wide line of sight and high speed, while the infantry bot has much more firepower and HP. When the commander finishes the construction of the bot lab, you can select him and right-click on the lab to add his own build power to that of the bot lab and produce units out of it much faster. Build power can be considered a third game resource and will also get a dedicated tutorial video. This extra build power, however, comes at a high energy cost, so you want to be ready to stop it and build new energy production buildings as you drain your stockpile of energy. A handy way to keep expanding energy production is to hold the shift key and drag your wind turbines to draw a line of them. If you also hold the alt key, then you can do double or triple lines at once. Those lines are dangerous, as when power production buildings are destroyed, they explode and damage surrounding buildings. So you want to add yet another key, this time Z, to put some distance between them and prevent such chain reactions. So to repeat, that is hold Shift, left click to draw a line, Alt to double the line, and Z to add gaps in between. The gaps will carry over in all future matches. Same thing happens to unit groups if you use Alt plus a number when forming such a group, and additionally, when each new unit of the same type is produced, it is automatically added to that group. On the right side of the screen, you can see the factory dock option, which we enabled in the interface options, and you can keep an eye on it to see what unit you are currently producing in each individual lab. You can also click and produce units from it without going back to base. Each construction bot you produce will automatically add his build power to the lab he comes out of until you give him a new order. I would advise using it to construct a construction turret, as that increases your build power in the range of the turret, as it adds its 200 build power to any active construction or repair project in its range. It can't start a construction process on its own, but it can finish one without your commander or construction bots being present. And this is where I have to stop, as I think this is not just enough information to get you started, but a lot to practice as well, because properly balancing resource income with producing units and constructing new buildings, which are both resource drains, is the most difficult part of learning beyond all reason. Cards on the screen and links in the description will take you to tutorials on other subjects, but I must advise first mastering the content of this tutorial, as there is more to learn in this game than you can possibly imagine. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!